I'll admit I'm a little confused by some of the things I just heard the minister say. It seems that he wants to have it both ways, because I have been in this chamber and many times listened to the minister tell us how very excellent, particularly on academics, Alberta's curriculum and Alberta students are. How many times have we heard the minister quote test results or results from PISA to make the case about just how excellent Alberta students perform when it comes to academics? So to listen to the minister come in here now, do a complete about-face on that and tell us that, no, actually, PISA doesn't matter. Interesting take from this minister. And that our students are not achieving academic excellence, kind of threw me a little bit. So Bill 25 that we have in front of us, an act to remove politics and ideology from classrooms. The minister claims will strengthen school safety, improve school board accountability, and keep the focus on teaching the fundamentals like reading, math, and science. Now, let's be clear what Bill 25 is actually about, because the bulk of this bill is simply centralizing power in the office of the Minister of Education, and this power runs the gamut. Everything from deciding the flags that get to be shown at school, all the way to setting priorities in education, something that used to be the purview of our locally elected and autonomous school boards. Yesterday, the Minister of Education said that it was baseless that he wants to eliminate school boards, and I believe him on that. After all, why go through all the fuss and bother of removing school boards when you can just take away all of their authority, power, responsibility? Much cleaner. Now, when it comes to teaching fundamentals, something that I heard the minister mention several times in his comments, the parents that sit among us in this chamber, parents that I talk to, parents that are engaging with their children's education, who are cultivating a relationship with teachers, who read the 10,000 emails that come from your kids' school every year, they know that the vast majority of our kids' school days are spent on literacy and numeracy. Without question, that is the focus for the entirety of the K-12 education. For the minister to suggest otherwise, there's a word that the members opposite throw around a lot. So for the government to suggest that our schools are not teaching, are not having a focus on literacy and numeracy is best described as fear-mongering. This government is fear-mongering. It's a completely disingenuous suggestion that our schools are not focused on literacy and numeracy. It's a completely disingenuous suggestion that teachers aren't governed by a code of conduct already that requires neutrality and impartiality in the classroom. I have a number of questions on specific clauses in the bill that I'd like to get to, but to start more broadly, I am hoping that the minister will be able to provide some clarity, because he has been asked a few times and I haven't yet heard an answer. When we are talking about this concept of neutrality, and it is important, Mr. Speaker, of course it's important that our teachers approach their lessons in a way that is free from personal bias and in a way that reflects the neutrality that parents expect in the classroom. But how far exactly are we taking this concept? Will teachers be required to teach both sides of slavery? And if so, if the minister could please clarify, because I think that we all know what the downsides of slavery are, but what would be the positive aspects of slavery that a teacher would now be required to teach to students to prove that they are impartial when it comes to slavery. I could ask the same question about genocide, about all of the really horrible things about human history, Mr. Speaker, and we know that there are many of those things. How far are we taking this concept of neutrality? Teachers, we learn about the Holodomor. Is there an upside to the Holodomor? Was there an upside to that? Is that something teachers are going to be required to teach to children? And I am not trying to be disingenuous in asking this question, Mr. Speaker. I really need the minister to help us understand how a teacher is meant to teach both sides of slavery. And teachers need to understand this too, because they are so confused as to what is being asked of them right now. Okay, let's go into specific clauses. We start with the preamble, where we are removing welcoming, caring, respectful, and safe learning environments that respect diversity and nurture a sense of belonging and a positive sense of self. Now we're subbing in some new words instead. We've got safe and caring environment that fosters and maintains respectful and responsive behaviors. In a way, we're just kind of moving words around in here, but there are still questions, I think, about removing the word welcoming. And given how many times the minister said the word diversity in his introduction of this bill, why we are removing the concept of a respect for diversity in the classroom, not just in the preamble in the bill. It cleans that language out about eight or nine times in the bill. I think the particular reason for flagging a concern around this, of course, is because this government has signaled that changes are coming to the model for inclusive education in our schools. And without question, that is something that is necessary, Mr. Speaker. The regulations as they exist now, I think, are about 20 years old. Obviously, the modern classroom has changed. And so we know that we need update to that, but there is a lot of concern, particularly in the disability community, that perhaps this is not the government that they would trust to make those changes to the inclusion model. So when we are removing a word like welcoming from our Education Act, this is why it is raising red flags for this community. I had a teacher write to me, Marlo. Marlo writes, quote, "What is wrong with welcoming? What is wrong with diversity? What is wrong with feeling the sense of belonging and having a positive sense of self? Do you realize a large part of teaching is forming relationships with students? Students need to feel safe, like they belong, are welcomed in our schools and classrooms. This is a huge part of learning." Marlo goes on to ask the minister if he might not have more important issues in education to attend to rather than rewriting the preamble in the Education Act. That there are many issues he would think would take more precedence, such as violence in classrooms or the horrifying lack of teachers, a result, of course, of this government's failure to hire the number of teachers that we actually need in our system. I think when we are thinking about the disability community and concerns about how welcoming or not welcoming our schools are, the Premier has made this comment several times, and I am hoping that the minister can provide some clarification. The comment is, quote, "Students can earn their way into and out of a classroom." End quote. This was a new concept for me, that students earned their way into a classroom. I have always thought of education as a right for every citizen. And certainly when you attend a public school, you don't have to earn your way into anything. You are provided with an education regardless of the need that you have. So if the minister would be able to clarify or elaborate on exactly what it is the Premier means when she says a student can earn their way into or out of a classroom, because this is extra concerning when we are removing words like welcoming. Who exactly are the students we are talking about who are going to earn their way out of a classroom under the tenure of this government. The next section in the bill has some change in language around courses or programs of studies. So they must encourage a wide range of perspective and ideas. Great, that already happens at school. That they must foster critical thinking. Awesome, teachers do that literally every day. Foster the acquisition of knowledge in schools. Yes, we're just describing what school is at this point. So I understand if the minister has to write it down to feel comfortable, that's fine, but let's not pretend that what is written here is any different from what is already happening in the classroom every single day. I have never talked to a single teacher who is not deeply invested in their students developing the capacity for critical thinking. That is 100% at the forefront of what is happening in our schools. All right. I want to address the changes in Section 31. Now, the minister referred to the changes in Section 31. This is the section of the Education Act on student responsibilities. This is the minister's answer to violence in schools. And the answer is probably the most clear illustration I could have asked for to show that the minister does not understand why we are having an issue with violence in our schools. So this adds a section to the Student Code of Conduct that students, quote, refrain from engaging in violence of any kind at school and during school-related activities. Chat, we are cooked. If this is what a government thinks is going to address violence in schools, are you serious that we think K-12 students are sitting down and reading the Education Act, any section of it, literally any section of it?